again, look, let's be clear here. This isn't something that is news. This isn't new. This is something that has long been confirmed. This isn't the first study that has confirmed this. It's just kind of interesting when it ends up coming from this agency that so many people in this country and America look at as some sort of beacon of truth. Make no mistake, though, we've talked about what is Browning Institute. I can't remember what the name of it was, where they compile like 200 studies or something crazy like that all over the world talking about natural immunity and either showing how effective that it was, and even more so showing how in a lot of cases it was more effective than a person that had no infection, no prior infection, but had multiple jabs and whatnot. So it's something that is not news. But again, with this recent new CDC study, it all but just confirms that there is more protection. And it's just another addition to it. It adds to the big group of people that or studies that exist out there. It's covered by Phil Shiver over from Blaze. A new study conducted by the CDC, found that prior infection with COVID offered stronger protection than vaccination against reinfection and hospitalization. The study, which of course you can find right here. This is right directly from the CDC.gov. So if you guys who are always afraid to talk about this stuff in detail because of you don't want Mama Susan to take you down, this is literal news, okay? But as documented, this was something that was done, analyzed data from May through November of 2021 in California and New York, which is a place to put it because we got a lot of explosions in cases certainly in those areas. And ironically enough, those are the areas that had often a lot of these restrictions in comparison to the rest of the country, definitely throughout pockets of the South. So it's a great place to house such a study. It found that California, only 0.5% of unvaccinated individuals with prior infection were diagnosed with a new infection. And only 0.003%, or 378 out of 1,370,782 were admitted to the hospital. The figures were even lower for those were lower, than those vaccinated individuals without prior infection, of whom 1.5%. So yeah, it's a percentage point higher. It's not like it's going from 0 to 50%, but it's still higher nonetheless. Diagnosed with infection in 0.007%, or 10,737 people out of basically 15 million were hospitalized. Similar data was produced in New York during that same time period, although New York didn't provide the hospitalization data. The study showed that a third group of individuals who were vaccinated against the virus had prior infection, sometimes called hybrid immunity, fared the best during the Delta surge. This is something that they were selling there for that the max protection. If you want maximum protection, not only do you got to get the jab, but you got to get infected with it too. And lastly, a fourth group consisting of unvaccinated individuals without prior infection accounted for by far the most infections and hospitalizations. So they are saying regarding the infection, the people that had not been infected, that had not been jabbed, they are saying made up the most of the infections, far more of the infections, which I'm gonna need to look into that and see what they're basing that off of. Is it just simply a positive test of those? And they're talking about they were hospitalized more. In short, the data demonstrated that both vaccination and prior infection produced immune protection against Delta. But it also, this is the thing, and I think the most important thing to take from this, as well as these other studies, it's that. And it's been this way forever. I mean, ethically, the policies that exist out there that have been sold as something that needs to exist to protect people were always anti-liberty. Now, that's not a secret. But it was also scientifically retarded, for lack of better terms. And it's because of exactly what we just showed. I know they like, we talked about this with the basketball players, like the Jonathan Isaacs of the world, when they were discussing kind of, oh, you need to get jabbed, all this. And he's like, dude, I've already had the damn virus. I have the natural immunity. Why on earth do I need to catch it other than it's essentially a pledge of allegiance? Is effectively all that it is, because scientifically there were already studies, multiple ones, that had already confirmed that natural immunity was sufficient in terms of preventing reinfections and all of that. Yet they built these odd policies that no matter what your immunity status was, you needed to ensure that you got the vaccination. And it never made sense. It never made any scientific sense. And certainly this study, along with the hundreds of others, have proven exactly that. It has been weird that these guys have not acknowledged natural immunity as a means of protection. It's only been vaccine. They don't even ask. They do the testing, right? You have these areas that have, well, if you don't have a vaccination, you have to be tested weekly or whatever, daily, maybe in some cases. And it's like, what sense does that make when we know that this doesn't even prevent transmission, number one? Number two, if a person has it, then that is literal protection. And I know you don't see it as a vaccination, but it still is literal protection from this. Why on earth are you treating them so differently? Because it wasn't about science. It was more of a pledge of allegiance. And this is why so many folks had to put their tinfoil hats on to try to figure out what was going on, because it never made sense. When you don't acknowledge an aspect of natural immunity that is a thing, well documented, and you act like it's not it just doesn't exist. It's not worth even acknowledging. Then of course people have to try to figure out, what are you really up to, man? Because this ain't about science. What are you up to? And I know people got so frustrated that are like big time pro jab advocates and all of that. You don't do yourself any favors by not acknowledging natural immunity. You do yourself no favors, none. Because we then know what you're selling is a sham. We know this ain't about science. It's a pledge of allegiance, man. And maybe it's to punish your political, or who you think are your political adversaries. That's it. Has nothing to do with actual science, because the data has shown this, and it's not just in this country. It's all around the world. And it says, at minimum, you'd have to concede that natural immunity is sufficient protection. So many of us have already got it. Why the fuck will we then add a jab, add getting jabs and boosters to that? I'm already protected. And why are you worried about me in the first place? Now, again, that goes back to the ethical thing of this whole ordeal. Like, it ain't your job to try to keep me, basically try to save me from myself anyway. That's what freedom and liberty is about. And again, you can't say, well, you're putting someone under another threat, because you're not. You can't say that. Not only for the people that are naturally immune and unvaccinated, but also the people that are unvaccinated and haven't caught it yet. Same thing, because the vaccination does not prevent transmission. Going back to the CDC, they've already confirmed that as well. All these policies were, and again, the policies are criminal regardless of how you feel about this, but all the policies ever were was something that they used to punish people that seemed to be a reminder to them of folks that just say, you know what, despite all of these extortion methods, coercion, threats of violence, I am not going to do what you want me to do. And that constant reminder is frustrating. So what they had did, and what people around this world did, people around the country, despite it making zero scientific sense, they sought to build policies and legislate punishment of people that were that constant reminder. But don't ever let them try to present it as if there was anything rooted in science, because these crackhead motherfuckers refuse to even acknowledge natural immunity. You just listened to a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake, which is live throughout the week at 12 p.m. Central on youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. Be sure to check out my website, ericdjuly.com, so you can stay up to date with everything it is that I'm doing. You can also become a member and get access to a bunch of cool perks and exclusive content, which includes a social media hub where you can interact with myself and other members. It even has an app that you can get, which is now live in the Google and Apple stores.